Want to bet? You can do it at Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook. Football continues. The World Series just about to get going, and they have now dropped the puck on the hockey season. Bet pregame, live in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Made for Canadians by Canadians, Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. Ontario only, 19 and over. Please play responsibly. Let's move on to Chicago. Their first 6 games of the year, they have a 4-2-0 record. That's not the record I was expecting for Chicago, considering we all thought they'd be trying to lead the way in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes.
Yeah, we should have had a You Can Bet That segment about like how many games does Chicago have to play before they get to 4 wins? Because we might have said like 10 or 12 games, given what was expected of them. And the fact they got there in 6 shows you that at least for a small period here, they're defying expectations. I mean, look, they signed NHL players, like they signed Max Domi, presumably for the chance to flip him at some point. We'll see how that plays out. I don't think that the plan that management has in place has changed any. I do think that they intend to get worse before get better and sell off more parts, as they've done pretty aggressively over the last 12 months or so. But one of the things that stands out to me is if you saw that the clip with Luke Richardson, the new head coach of the team, and Kyle Davidson were available to the media a day or two before training camp. And Luke was outright. He's like, look, I want to make Kyle Davidson's job hard. We're going to try to win as much as we can. And so far he's been true to his word. And so, this is one, if I had to sort of put on my speculating guess glasses, I don't think it's going to continue. I don't see Chicago being a team that stays in a playoff picture or truly defies expectations. But the fact they've done so for 2 weeks is interesting. And it's sort of like, how long can they keep this going? Does management, how does this play out? It'd be fascinating if they keep winning, put it that way, because I don't think, other than the head coach and I'm sure the players that have to play the games, there were not many people around that organization closely, and those of us more broadly in the hockey world, that expect them to win too much this year.
Let's go over to Boston. I have to admit, I thought the injuries were going to kill them. They're doing really well without Bruce Cassidy. But you know who's also doing really well? Bruce Cassidy with the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, isn't this interesting? I mean, basically 2 of the hottest teams to start the year is the team that Bruce Cassidy left and the one he took over, the Bruins and the Golden Knights. And so, I mean, by far, when I look back, we've had so many coaching changes in the last year, but the one that shocked me the most and still I can't fully wrap my head around is the Bruins firing Bruce Cassidy. His teams had like a 670 point percentage or something like that in his time there, that they made the playoffs all 6 years he was there, but they decided it was time for a fresh voice in Jim Montgomery. And lo and behold, even with their injuries, even with that coaching change, the Bruins have started, like wildfire this season. And it looks like Brad Marchand could return as soon as Thursday, but certainly is very close to return, even if it doesn't come Thursday after his hip surgeries that he had over the summertime. And so that's a great story in and of itself, because there's a little last dancey vibe to the Bruins. I think David Krejci's had a great start in coming back after a year in playing in Czechia, his home country. Patrice Bergeron only is on a 1-year deal. I mean, I don't know how long this core is going to be there. You can only really count on it being this season. And so the fact that they're off to a good start, I think, is encouraging. And then, that Bruce Cassidy is turned things around in Vegas, after their first missed playoffs ever last year, a year where a lot went against them with just crazy injury problems and what have you, the cap situation, but he's had a strong start there. And so, that doesn't maybe surprise me as much as the Bruins start, just because of the combination of injuries and the change behind the bench. To me, I thought Vegas, I viewed that kind of as a bit of a one-off. And so I thought it was a good situation for him to step into. But anyway, this is one of those breakups where on both sides, each is thriving. So, it's a good news story.
Yeah, that's good. Those types of breakups are allowed to happen. Nazem Kadri in Calgary. I'm a little bit more familiar with this one than some of the other storylines. Off to an amazing start in Calgary. Points in all 6 games that he's played so far with his new team.
Few highlight reel goals, end-to-enders already for him. I think what's interesting here is, first of all, it's a short summer, right? He ends, he plays in the Stanley Cup final injured, but he shouldn't have played those games, or wouldn't have played those games if they were his regular season, given what he was dealing with. And then he's got the long wait in free agency, which must have been stressful. He's got all the Stanley Cup parties and planning his own day with the Cup. He goes to Europe for a trip with his family. I mean, it was not the ideal summer of preparation, and that's not a knock at Kadri. It's just, the circumstances in his life didn't set up well, maybe to have the best carryover. And, there's some burden probably, I would assume, to, signing the kind of deal he did. You want to do well, but maybe you didn't get as much training time as you wanted or as much time on the ice. Well, scratch all those narratives or thoughts or possibilities with the way he started. And we're going to measure, and Julian, especially you on the ground covering this team closely, you're going to measure the decision to sign him to that kind of money at his age. I mean, he's entering an age 32 season. He turned 32 at the start of October when he gets that $49 million contract. It's going to take years before we know if that was a good decision, most likely. But the fact that the first few weeks have gone so well, I think that's a really positive story, because I've seen it lots of times where the new free agent signing, comes in with different expectations, making different money, and it doesn't work initially. Sometimes it's hard to come back from a bad start. There's extremes like David Clarkson in Toronto, who, signed a big contract and got a 10-game suspension in the preseason and just never got going. And then unfortunately came into injury trouble, so he couldn't work his way out of that. But, there's other circumstances where it's almost just like a bad start to in the new city, it can wear on a player. And so I think the fact that it's gone so well for Kadri is a huge bonus, a great bit of news for the Flames. And, we'll see how it goes. But I mean, this guy's defying the age curve himself. He's a little younger than Sidney Crosby. Certainly didn't ever have the peak anywhere near as high as Sidney Crosby, but coming off a hugely productive year in Colorado, it looks like he's poised to do so again in Calgary.